Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Rabbit
Oh,
Hole.
welcome.
I am your host, one of them, Ben Wheaton, and this is Ashley.
I'm your co-host, Ashley.
So today, in light of the season, um, we want to talk about
Christmas.
arguably the best holiday. Um, I think it's I think it's the best. Um,
I
Mainly,
think Thanksgiving is close.
yeah, but you can't even though you're eating a lot at Thanksgiving, you can't savor it as long as Christmas.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is more a day. Christmas is the season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's I
Well,
think Thanksgiving is wonderful because it's a day about eating and being thankful, which are two wonderful things.
mhm.
Um, but Christmas is I think that there's just a lot more to savor. For me specifically, when I was comparing the two in my mind just now, like just the decorations, the lights.
Mm.
You walk in, everywhere's decorated, you've got that smell of Christmas, that fir needle pine smell. Oh, so good.
Yeah, we had a the Christmas party I went to on Friday. It was Garrett's Garrett's apartment, but the girls came over and decorated it. And to me, like part of me was like, it's such a lot of work for one night. It's like so much effort to decorate something that's going to be torn down the day after. But then whenever they got it all set up, I was like, that was worth it. That looks good. And it kind of reminded me of like I don't know if it's just more of a woman thing, but like the beauty in the things that don't last. Like I'm specifically thinking of flowers. Of like, yeah, of course they don't last, but it's that's the point. If it's only there for a moment. It's like decorations in the house that get taken down every year, and it's so much. It seems like a lot of effort to switch back and forth. Yeah, but it definitely creates like a really good vibe, if you will.
Yeah, I know. As we were putting up Christmas decorations, I was like, oh, this is a lot of stuff that comes out for what a grand total of maybe a month and a half, a year, but it just sets the tone, I think. And without it, it's like a whole energy shift happens in the house.
So, what is your favorite
Oh,
late
okay.
Christmas tradition?
Oh, that's so hard. Uh,
Or maybe one that lasted for a few years and then maybe faded out, or it doesn't have to be like a tradition passed on through generations or anything. I can go first.
why don't why don't you go first? I feel like I want some time to think.
All right. One tradition that has fizzled out, but I enjoyed it. It definitely ran pretty hot for 3 years, 3 or 4 years, where it was like that was a good time. It was we would go to I don't know if it was the same Christmas lot, but it was a pretty big Christmas lot when we were younger, and we would play. What's it's not I don't know exactly what exact game it's called, but it's like hide and seek. But there's like a base point that you have to run back to, and if you get to it, you're safe um,
Without being caught.
without being caught.
Okay.
There's like one guy that's going around, and we were. I mean, that was just a lot of fun. You have like six boys running around the Christmas tree lot hiding, and yeah, that was a really fun tradition. But it kind of faded out as we got older. But it was a good time.
You don't still run around Christmas lots.
No, I can't say that I have. I haven't been to a Christmas lot the past few years. Yeah, it's true.
Um, gosh, I don't know. I think it's for me. It's maybe not one big thing, but it's all the little small things that I'm thinking of. Um, which I guess maybe they are traditions for my family, but it's all these little small moments that amount to everything I think of when I think of Christmas and decorating. So like drinking eggnog while we put up the tree and decorate, or watching Elf while we put up the tree and decorate, or so my family is kind of unique. We actually do presents Christmas Eve. We don't do presents on Christmas Day.
Mm.
So Christmas Eve was always the excitement and not as much like Christmas is still exciting, of course. Um, little things like that.
Do you open them Christmas Eve morning or evening?
Christmas Eve night. Yep. Yep. Watching Elf again. We watch Elf a lot during this time of year. It's so good. It doesn't get old. My dad and I love that movie. I mean, my mom too, but it's really a big cornerstone in my relationship with my dad, which is probably why I'm so attached to the movie because I'm really attached to him. But
Well, you probably also picked up a lot of good. Well, at least for me, like I just kind of know my basic food categories from that movie: candy,
candy
candy,
cane, candy
candy
corn.
corn, and
Sure.
syrup.
There you go. I know.
Would you say
Um,
is that your favorite?
my favorite Christmas movie. It's my favorite movie of all time, hands down. It just there's so much like joy and just hope in that movie, and it really plays out so many, I think, circumstances in terms of like family issues and feeling like you don't belong. And I feel like it just hits on so many important issues. But then ultimately ending in this really awesome sense of hope and joy. And the music is great, and Will Ferrell is hilarious. And yeah, we watch that movie every year. So it's things like that or little ornaments that we've always had for the tree.
Mm,
Um, we have a little snowman that comes out that counts down the days till Christmas.
mm.
And it's just those little things. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like maybe it's not necessarily a tradition, but it's just all the things that happen around the season that make it really special.
Mm. I like A Christmas Carol. Um, I try to watch one of the versions last night, but we got vetoed, or I was outnumbered, and then we ended up watching The Sound of Music, which is a really great movie. But
Had you seen it before?
I saw it when I was like sixth, seventh grade, and so
Oh,
rewatching it was kind of with more um, with different eyes was interesting. Kind of noticed different things about it, and some of the connections are a little different. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty good movie.
It's an intense movie.
I like oh, Maria. No, yeah, Maria, right? Yeah, her character is really great.
We actually have a Sound of Music ornament that went on the tree. So that's funny that you were watching that movie yesterday, probably around the same time I was hanging the ornament on the tree.
Now, what? It's not Christmas though, is it? It's not a Christmas movie.
Oh no, so my family also has this thing that like we either get ornaments or keychains or something from any thing or trip what we've done, but we try to get it without too much giving it away so that we have to like play this game while we decorate the tree like where was this one from? Um which is really cool, and then it just brings back memories of the trip like oh yeah, remember this happened on that trip or whatever. It's kind of like a built-in it's like a tradition with a lot of built-in memories and access to past events, which is really cool how my parents have done that. Or they had ornaments from when they were together. And actually so we have a fake tree and it's the same fake tree from their first Christmas together, which was pre-Ashley, which is really crazy because that's hard to imagine. And I was like, wow, it's so weird to imagine you guys before me. And my dad was like, oh yeah, it's hard to imagine us before you too. um, and we just had a lot of fun. Like, or so my parents had trips that they went on, or like their honeymoon right before I was born. Not right before, but right comma before I was born. And they were like, oh, this was our trip to Aruba. Do you remember this? And he was like, yeah, I wonder whatever happened with that dolphin. And just like it's cool. It's kind of like the Maroon 5 song, like memories bring back memories, It's like then it's just this cascade and it keeps going.
I think that's interesting that like with the thing that's why I think it's important, and we could probably tie this into consumerism and the dark side of Christmas, if you will. But the things that last, so like a Christmas tree that lasts, or these trinkets and totems and objects that bring back memories that you keep and you treasure. Um, and it reminds me of a YouTube video I watched by Veritasium. Really, really good content on that YouTube channel. But he talks about um, the title of the YouTube video is "This is why we can't have nice things," and he basically talked about the business model called forced obsolescence. So, um, how people and companies will create products that wear out quickly, like Apple or things like that, because it's good for business, and it also like can give people jobs, and it helps like there's some the benefits to it, but the downside is um, you get worse products that don't last, and you have to dispose of them and get new ones, but the new ones that don't have any connection to the past, so that we're constantly living in a world where we're not seeing anything that has history, and it makes us not it doesn't tie us down to maybe good memories or something like that, and that kind of goes a little bit with the consumerism. It's built into it, like people not making things of integrity, because um, it's not good for business. If you make a product that lasts forever, then you're out of business once everyone that gets it has one.
Yeah, I know. And it's so that strikes a chord for me because of how wasteful it is too. And that I find excessive waste very disheartening and frustrating because we only have so many resources and we act like we have infinite resources and we don't, because a lot of those things aren't renewable and they go to a landfill and they go to the ocean, and now we are losing our planet's natural ways of sequestering all of these excess gases and killing off all this beautiful wildlife in the process. And I'm very passionate about protecting against that. But yeah, I think it's interesting to look at this tree that they've had, right? So what? I don't know. I guess they've had it for, I don't know, almost 30 years. And it's this like little Charlie Brown Christmas tree, but it sure comes to life. And it's amazing because it's lasted all this time and it's great and it's probably still going to keep going. But I think that there are those darker sides of Christmas, the consumerism and the greed that can come with it, and people expecting nice gifts. And I think that for some people too, the holidays can be super challenging because of forced family interactions or those types of things, which fortunately I don't think either of us really have that to those extents. But yeah, I think overall I've been very privileged and very blessed to have a positive association with the holidays.
It's a good point. Yeah, yeah, and it makes me think, just like just for purchasing things, like getting things that will at least last, or at least I think Jordan Peterson talked about uh, when it like things that are made with integrity, like how that kind of like being so even if you're around what you're the average of the five people you associate yourself with or stuff like that. Well, I think also the things that you have kind of affect you a little bit. So if you're the things you feel, the things you touch, the things you see, if you see everything that's just gimmicky and facade and shallow, versus if you're around objects that were built and made with integrity, like furniture that your great grandfather built with his own hands, it's like right there. Or even you building the things. Like if I this is outside of Christmas. I'm kind of going just into thinking about like a house, of like building a house. Like when you know exactly how things work and exactly what they're made of because you built them. Um, I could see that being like a really good. It's a constant reminder to yourself of like, I did that, I built that, like I put time and effort, I put my own life and time into this, and
Yes, yes,
so it's not just okay, is there a cheaper option, which of course when logistics things that happen in life that you just like, okay, I'm not, this is stupid for me to do this because I'm concentrated on other things, but making things with quality, making things that are beautiful, taking the time and effort to work hard at something. um, now I'm just going on the tangent of convenience, and how whenever things are too convenient, you actually lose that sense of reward or that positive association with having to work hard for something to get it. Uh, Like if you go on a if you go on a hike that takes 10 miles and you get to the top, you feel extremely satisfied and accomplished. And um, but if you drive up to a overlook, it's just like that's pretty. All right, let's get in the car and go. It's like
Yeah,
the convenience robs us of that satisfaction and that joy.
totally.
Um, and I think that that's also similar with other things with the physical objects that you surround yourself with. And if they're things that are built to last, then that's I don't know. That's I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. I think that's also why, like we were talking about before we went on air, kind of also the value of cards or written words like that, which I know we talked about the Thanksgiving week too. But yeah, that's a huge thing that they touch on and that you kind of get the gist of in Outlander, which I know I reference a lot, but it's such a good series with so many key themes and ideas. But through certain means, which I won't say in case anybody watching this is reading books, but something happens to their house in the what I guess they're in the 1760s, and they have to rebuild a house like totally from scratch, which means like cutting down the trees and all of the things, and you're just living through days with Jamie where he's like, I have to go out and do this today, and I have to do this, and we have to hunt this so that we have food for tonight, and we have to gather this, and Claire's in the field and she's like, oh, this looks possibly interesting, and I have to go to town because I need Jesuit bark because I need to make this tonic. And like then I just was reading this chapter where they were christening the chimney for their new home, and it's just like these little things that are just so lost now, but you're like, yeah, Jamie's going to walk into that house every day like I built this. And the little things, he's like, I'm going to build your surgery facing east so that you get the morning light. And it's just how in tune he had to be with nature to build that and the skill set that you have to have to do that. And now we're at a time where, like you said, it's more about the convenience, and it's kind of this battle between money and time, and which one do you have more of?
Mm, yeah. I think it's also what do you want, what do you value, and then usually get like it's like a multi-step process. Like, well, why am I working? Because I need money. Well, why do I need money? Because I want to do this and this and this. Well, why do I want to do this and that? So I can have this, or so I can have a family and have a house and have a kid. Or some people just go straight. Well, this is what I want. I'm just gonna do this and try, like only basically instead of hiring people, I'm just gonna learn how to do it myself. And that's an option too. Um,
I read this super funny thing. Well, it was kind of grim, but I can't remember exactly how it went, but it showed like the cyclical nature of things, and it was like, go to work to make more money, to live in nice house with nice things, so that I can leave it every morning to go to work to keep making money, to keep living in house where I hardly spend my time except when I'm sleeping. And it just kind of was like this cycle of all these arrows pointing to each other. And I was like, wow, this is really sad because it's so true. Like if you have all this money and you have this house, but then you don't even get to spend most of your time there. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just really made me think. And I think for people like us, we're just such value driven individuals. And
when I'm at my best.
I think that helps you a lot with decision making, but it gets really hard when you've got competing values and you've got to determine which one wins.
Mm, yeah. I suppose, yeah, what do you value and then what do you prioritize? And I think it's interesting that it seems like most people don't prioritize taking it slow or just enjoying things. And my brother Will, we talked today. He said that he's reading a book called something about the complete abandonment of hurry, some type of book titled that, and he basically talks about how the culture has shifted and how it used to be, um, you know, the rich were the people that had the time. They were took time to do things, and um, that was considered the luxury. But now it's like almost like having having no time and just working all the time is like considered. Wow, he's got it. It's like what happened, and then just I guess it also ties in the season sometimes of like the hustle bustle of Christmas season, or it can feel that way.
Yeah.
And
And like,
like, what do you
Christmas can be
prioritize?
stressful. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, just basically, yeah, like the sense of like, what do you value? Do you value having days where you're, and then some, like, to be honest, me, a lot of times you don't have an option. Like you're kind of hitting the ground running right now, just with where you're at, and so there's going to be seasons of busyness, and your life is going to be full. Everybody that has kids probably in that stage of life where
I can't even imagine.
their life is full and they have careers. Um, but the idea that or like, are you rich in time? Are you rich in money? Are you rich in other things? Energy?
I think, yeah, that's the thing too about this season is it can be really stressful because I think especially maybe for parents, if you're like really trying to put on a show for your kids, or not a show, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot to do to go above and beyond for your kids, which I think just shows I'm even thinking about my own parents and like I can't even imagine like knowing what both my parents did career wise and how they still managed to make Christmas super special and amazing for me and the stress that that must have induced for them. But I think it just shows like how selfless and sacrificial parents can be, which is really an awe-inspiring trait, especially in my own parents. Um, but it can be a really stressful time of year in terms of like there's so much to do or even just all the little things if you're having guests, getting the house ready, you know, making the meals, if you have guests, keeping them entertained, being a gracious host, having presents, getting the presents, wrapping the presents, making the presents look pretty. It's a lot of stuff going on. And so I think that what's important and what I'm really trying to work on over the next 2 weeks that I have as a break are like getting things accomplished, but still not kind of sacrificing that break mentality in a way, as in like I don't know. I think that you have to have a little bit of a mind shift, and this is something I've had to work on. But like, this doesn't have to be stressful. It's stressful because that's what I'm projecting onto it. I think finding ways to slow down. Yoga really helps me with this. Just finding that pause in terms of, this doesn't have to be stressful, and I'm not going to let this. I'm going to dictate how this goes. This isn't going to dictate how it goes. And I think that shift in mentality is so crucial in taking your ownership and your um and being the one that has the final say of like, no, I'm not going to get stressed and I'm not going to get frustrated putting up decorations, even though these lights are all, intertwined and I can't get them untangled. And the like I had to have that moment with myself yesterday. Like, Ashley, this is supposed to be fun. Take a breath. But I think those resets are so important because otherwise it is easy to get really overwhelmed. I think that's something I'm really trying to work on. I saw this really cool graphic and it kind of had like all the typical Christmas things, but it had words scratched out. And it was like, buy presents and it had buy crossed out and it said be present. And just little things like that, or like see the lights and it had it crossed out and it was like be the light. Or, and I wrote it in my journal. I was like, yes, this is so important. And these are the intentions and the ways I want to move into this season and not letting it dictate me, and really kind of tapping into myself and finding that gift giver and gift receiver in myself, which gift receiving and gift giving can both be really hard.
Mm.
Have you experienced that at all?
Um, yeah, I think I just like the idea of giving good gifts, and so when I can't give a good gift, I get frustrated because it makes me like going back to feeling like I'm wasting money on something that no one's going to use. So that's probably the hardest part for me. Um, and then just actually deciding on like, okay, well, this gift is good enough to buy it. Um, and if I feel like it's a good gift, I don't hesitate at all. But a lot of times it's just like, oh, well, what do I do? Um,
Yeah.
but actually, I was thinking of something. I can't remember where I was going to go. Oh, just about I'm going to go back to the hurry part. But I think one idea that I have at times is um, I'm very poor in time. So there's not enough time. I have to get this done. There's not enough time. and there's I think urgency can be a good thing, um, but it can also cause you not to do things as well, or like rushing through things. And the idea, like you said with yoga, of just slowing down, and then basically the idea that, you know what, there is time, there's plenty of time. Like, I think thinking about, people also look at this with money too. Like, if you have a scarce view of money, or a scarce view of time, or a scarce view of whatever, like there's just not enough, then that's going to put you in a different mind state, versus if you believe that there is enough, there's plenty of time, there's plenty of money out there, there's plenty of time out there. And it needs to be based on, evidence to a degree. um, but I think that's a pretty good shift in the way you look at things. Like, and it forces you to prioritize too, because if you do take time, you won't be able to do everything that you want to do. So then you have to say, okay, well, I'm rushing because I'm not prioritizing. I'm rushing because I'm trying to do everything that I want to do, instead of picking the few important things that really matter and sticking to those and doing those well and doing them completely. Which, I'm speaking to myself here, but
That's okay. Best way to process.
um, yeah, I think that's definitely important. I don't really know. I kind of took that and ran with it, but I don't know how to tie it back in. But
Well, I think it's also kind of prioritizing like what you're going to stress about too. Like you only have, I think, at least how I've been thinking about it this week in particular, is like you only have so much stress to give without, going crazy and like reaching an unhealthy lifestyle. And so you kind of have to prioritize, what are you going to stress about? And I guess it's also a kind of, where is your energy and where is your time going to go? And for me, I've just had to decide in a way, like, I'm not going to give it to stressing about something like Christmas that's ultimately supposed to be joyful and fun and peaceful. Um, I think a lot of it helps if you're a little bit pre-prepared. Like some of my gifts I've already gotten, I've had them for a while. That does help, if as opposed to being like, I have to gift shop for every single person. Um, but I think a lot of it, yeah, is just getting into the mindset of, I'm gonna choose what I stress about, and this isn't gonna be one of those things. But I guess that's hard if you've got a lot of people to shop for and now you're trapped 3 days before Christmas and you have all these gifts to buy. Um, yeah, I don't know. I
not.
think it's just a shift. I think it's just a decision,
Mhm.
but it's a decision I've made a lot of times before, so I have a lot of practice with making this decision. Like, it's a hard decision. It's kind of like a muscle. You have to build up this decision strength to be able to say, like, I'm not going to stress about this because it's not worth it.
Mm,
And I need to let go of false urgency.
mm, mm. I like that. False urgency.
Yeah, like, I have to get this done. It's like, pause. This is a false sense of urgency. And I think just also, I mean, we talked about it before, but just coming back to, I think it's also great to make those momentary lists of just like, what do I have right now? I've got this, I've got that, I've got that. It's like, okay, the fact that I can stress about this says a lot. So it's okay to take a breath and slow down.
I think that's one thing that I really enjoy about, just being a part of a Christian family, and um, all the traditions of all that have been really great. And I don't know if you know, like the Advent calendar.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like doing that at the dinner table, and like lots of lights. I love like candlelight. What's the midnight service? All that stuff. Like, and that is, and I mean, Linus off of Charlie Brown said it best, whenever he did his thing. But like constantly reminding yourself and prioritizing about what Christmas is about, um, and like doing the puzzle with my grandma with the nativity scene, and like all of this stuff that's a great, that's just great to have in mind during the more potentially stressful and logistical things of getting Christmas ready and putting an effort to make it special.
Yeah. And I think ultimately you hope that, and not to say that it's not important to get gifts, but if you ran into a circumstance where you were like, I just did not have time to get you anything, but I will, um, that you have people that would be understanding of that and not like upset or like you would lose a relationship over that. That's not to say you can use it as an excuse, but I think just being it's compassion and understanding. Just you can never go wrong returning to those.
Ooh, I do remember what I was gonna say. I like it.
Okay,
Back. You said
glad I
compassion.
triggered it.
Well, it kind of goes back to, I guess, like you give what you get, or you get what you give, type of thing. So I noticed. So my brother Will, he's on top of it. He's very good at. He's put in the effort and the intentionality to be a good gift giver, and he's prioritized it. And out of that, I've noticed that like just naturally, I want to reciprocate, because I mean that's what humans interact is like. You do this, I do that. It's very most relationships just naturally end up being very reciprocative, and that just kind of reminded me of just how important it is to treat people um, in like a certain way. You're basically saying, "Hey, this is how I interact with you," and most of the time, not always, but that's just I don't know. It's like the way you establish a relationship and the way you act. It really is important, and everybody really does affect everybody else. And like that's a pretty powerful thing to realize that you, whether you realize it or not, you're impacting people, influencing them, and making impressions on them, and your actions matter, and these things affect people, and like that's a very powerful idea because it makes you realize, you have influence, and you can and it's like you everyone has a certain amount of power that they can use for good or bad. And I think it's very cool to see when people use the power that they've been given in a positive way, how that creates what's like it's a contagious. And that's I think Christmas is a really good example of that contagion. uh,
Mhm.
when when we're most of us, not all of us, or not all the time, but most of us are at our best, or in a mood of giving. And I think it's such a cool thing about like, I mean, I guess it's, some people would say it's karma, or giving what you're getting and you reap what you sow, all that type of stuff. um, but it's pretty cool. Like I don't feel anxious about giving anybody a gift. It's just like I want getting to the point to where it's not a duty and you want to do it based off of like like the reciprocation factor of like, oh, that's gonna be, I really want to bless this guy, or to bless my brother, and try to find a gift that's really good that he will really enjoy.
Yeah.
Like that's a mind shift right there. I think we talked about that with duty versus wanting to be there for the hospital example. I think about where
Yeah.
duty and obligation comes. Yeah, but I think that was really cool. Um,
Yeah. Just it can be such an act of love. And I think that's what it boils down to ultimately is, this is a way for you to give someone something, that if it's a super thoughtful gift, it's just kind of an extension of the relationship.
and how you have, and people have the power to change relationships too. A lot of times we get stuck in similar roles, and how you have the choice to decide, um, if you want, you can change it in a positive way, or you can switch it up and make it different if you'd like, but you have to put effort into it, and the intentionality and the focus and priorities, like it's all there. But it's like, um, times in my past I literally would have to write it down and be like, okay, I'm gonna try to do this today, like, and then eventually it becomes normal. But like stuff like that is pretty cool. It's but it
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's cool when you watch that shift, right? That's something that you've had to like consciously put effort into and think about when it just suddenly becomes more subconscious and more habitual.
Yeah, yeah. I like
It's cool how adaptive we are.
and you also talked about we always worry about, you know, we have to have something. We want to find good things to worry about. I noticed, so just from trying different things and trying to push myself. As soon as I accomplish, I feel comfortable in a certain setting, or I feel like I've gotten to where I wanted, whether it's like being able to, I remember this is one time in college, like being able to be confident in multiple scenarios where I would be uncomfortable, or um, like feeling perfectly at ease going into a place where my hair would be sticking up. I have a ponytail and stick it straight up in the air, or like stuff like that. Like
For
it's
that. Yeah.
and that's what would be on my mind. And so I'd be like, oh, people are looking at me. People are looking at me. And then eventually, over time,
Yeah.
I stopped caring. I didn't care at all. But then my mind started worrying about other things. And then like you're slowly like expanding that sense of like, I'm not thinking about this anymore. I'm like, I don't care. Like I've already done this enough times to where it doesn't phase me. But then as soon as that happens, you find something else to worry about. And you find something, oh, do people like me? Oh, do people not like me? Okay, well, I don't care what people think. Now I care what, now it's like, what does God think? Or like, then everything, it always shifts. So I feel like we always have something to worry about. And it's fun whenever you start building up to the things that are um, uh, bigger, like more worthy worries, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, because I think that so much of that comes from like establishing a more secure sense of self. Maybe, it's like you get more confident in yourself, and that little worries like, oh, people are looking at me or whatever it might be, it just starts to go away. And I think that's such a crucial transition to happen, because otherwise you're spinning your wheels on ultimately things that don't matter, which is hard to believe at the time because you really think it does matter, but it doesn't in the grand scheme of things. And now you can direct your energies, and it just leaves you with more, I don't know, more, like kind of you just have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, and so that I think that was one of my goals, especially in college. But then I realized that you're always the mind is going to find something. So
Oh, yeah.
going in on, um,
I think as soon for me at least, like my mind just really struggles with being idle. And if as soon as one thing goes, that's just room for something else. It's like it's never like it dwindles. I think it's always kind of at this certain level of capacity, and something else just steps in.
yeah, like we need to be engaged, have at least some type of problem to solve, or some type of something to think about. Um, yeah, but it's fun. I think for me, it's more fun trying to figure out like the next challenge to attack, or the next thing to engage my mind with. A lot of them, I tend to be very interested in social stuff, uh,
Yeah.
as you can probably tell by just a lot of stuff. I'm very interested in in that, and like pushing myself in different social settings.
Which is so interesting because like that's so opposite of me, which is cool because I think we're so similar in a lot of ways, but then we have some of those differences where I think you definitely are more like adventurous with that. And I'm like, I'll stay at home.
Yeah, it's cool, definitely cool. But yeah, one time, I got up and spoke at Crew, and and it was like in front of 1,000 people or something, and like for some reason, and in my head, thought it was like before. I thought I wasn't going to be nervous. This is like public speaking, and when I got up there, I was so nervous. But then like part of my mind that had already done a lot of challenges was like, well, you're nervous. Just get it over with. I was like, you're nervous. Accept it. You're gonna come back down, and that's gonna be it. It doesn't really matter. And so in my mind, I knew what was going on, but my body was just like fidgeting, and like I was like looking around. And, like I think so. Even going into new situations after doing something like that for a long time, eventually you just get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's the meta skill. That's the skill that is really important. But it also sometimes leads to detaching from the situation, like just kind of being very out, like
And discomfort like that can breed avoidance, I think.
yeah, yeah. So Well, I don't know. Sometimes this is not Christmas at all, but sometimes I've noticed I think I almost like the feeling. So I know there's methods of there's methods of reducing the anxieties by preparing and planning and
Yes,
taking
exposure. Yep.
low exposure and taking my time. And then for some things, I just intentionally want to just get thrown into the fire. Um, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do that tactic because I do build up some associations with it, but it's definitely exciting and I'm definitely fully engaged. Um, so not with everything, but it definitely is a rush.
Do you have
And
any like specific
and sometimes it's
examples?
so like I remember sometimes it's just so embarrassing. Um, yeah, but whatever. That's just a part of growing, I guess. Getting absolutely humiliated, and then
So what'd you talk about at crew?
it was something about just it was something with Crew High School, something about like plugging the Crew High School. But I just remember I was like, just I guess public speaking. So then that makes me think, okay, public speaking. I want to keep doing. I want to do, and that's why I wanted to do comedy for a while. Um, and then that's like, okay, that's the next thing to not care about because I apparently I um, don't like I'm not comfortable in that setting, and so it just makes me want to be comfortable in that setting because it makes me feel like I'm growing because it's like I've mastered that domain, and that's exciting. I think that's what it is. Like any spot where I feel a weakness,
Mm, trying to master it.
yeah, I like the mastery aspect, and
I
I
think,
and for some reason it's specifically social. Like
yeah,
for me it's specifically social for whatever reason. That's what interests me, and so like I think the dance hall was that it's like a totally new social sphere, and so I wanted to figure out like how to feel comfortable in that dynamic and understand what's going on.
I think I got a lot of my like public speaking jitters and unease out with being a TA in college, leading those review sessions and having all those people there and, you know, holding so much information and trying to explain it. But teaching is just constant public speaking. That's really a lot of what it is.
Hmm.
Um,
And it depends on it depends on like if you feel like you're an expert in the field, you're going to be much more likely to speak with an air of authority. If you go in with a place of people where you belong, it's going to help you out. If you have something to say, that's going to make a huge difference of whether you get nervous or not. So there are other factors of like, do you feel
totally.
do you feel like you belong? Have you been here to this place before? So for me, the exciting thing would be, can I go in a room of people I don't know in a setting I don't know and deliver a message that I want to deliver? Like even like for if I was ever to do comedy, which comedy is a little bit of like the nightlife, which I don't. It's I'm not a huge fan of it. Um, but like into a potentially hostile environment and be able to control the crowd, like that's like, could I do that or I just get absolutely crushed? um I don't know, that's for some reason it's exciting to me because it's
Yeah,
like
crowd control is another interesting one that I've picked up over the past few weeks being a middle school teacher. it's
oh,
it's like 15% teaching and 85% crowd control.
yeah, like, and that's the thing that's exciting, like think that seems interesting to me about teaching is like, wow, those are some good skills to learn, like very good. And so much learning that's actually useful is not really like a formal education. Like there's
No,
so much of it that's just the subtleties, like the experiences, the situations that you put yourself in that require you to make decisions, and that it's and so stuff like that, like teaching sounds very exciting, but also exhausting and very tiring. Um,
listen to your parents. Don't do.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Just yeah, I don't know why, but it definitely makes me excited.
No, it's really intriguing, and I think that that's what actually has been fun about it is the challenge has been immense. Stepping up to it and figuring it out, especially as someone with pretty much zero training because it's not like as a college TA you really have class control. Like at that point you've got people who are, sort of figured out, but ultimately no, like I come to class, I sit down and I stop talking. Um and you've got people who are there for the most part that want to learn and also have grown out of the like puberty, high energy, childlike um they have my kids have a ton of energy, which is normal. Like they're 11 years old and kind of finding this balance of like, do you contain that energy? And when is it appropriate to contain that energy? And when is it appropriate to let them be crazy?
Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Do they need
Because
to
you
yeah.
have to, I think what I really started appreciating this week is I gave him a little bit more leash. I let him out a little bit more because it's the week before Christmas and it's fun. And they had midterms. And then Thursday we were crazy. And or Friday, we were out of control. But it's like, yeah, but it's Friday before Christmas break. Like it's kind of supposed to be this way. And this isn't the time to be, yelling and discipline, not that I yell, but disciplining. There's a room for that kind of energy and for them to just be kids and have an awesome wacky day at school where we just did riddles and listened to Christmas music in the background because like really you're going to try to teach math the day before break. And I think some of that is so important though, and that's what I was really thinking about is like you've got to also let them be kids and let them have fun because then they start building up those positive associations and it becomes a much more fun place, whereas if they only have negative associations, you've already lost them. And I think what's also really cool tip for me to have seen is I can give them more, kind of not free reign, that's a very loose term, but just it can give them a little bit more room because I know that I've got them. And when I need to call them back, they'll come. And that's humongous. Like having that kind of knowledge that, yeah, you guys can have fun and do this, but now we really got to settle back. And they're right there with me, like, okay, now we got to settle back.
That's impressive.
Which is, it's cool to see. And I'm like, I'm really impressed that I've stepped up to this challenge. And a lot of it is just getting them engaged and getting them to find what you're doing interesting and to find you interesting. Because if kids don't find you interesting, they won't pay attention. Like that's just
I
true.
think that's so good that you said that. I was thinking about that today. We talked about it before, a lot about positive associations and just associations with things in general, your relationship with them. But I was just thinking that's such a downside of some formal training is, and I was thinking about this for myself, which I've kind of learned over the past year and a half, is, what's the point of learning something as fast and efficiently as possible if you don't enjoy it and you don't create any like there's no connection. Like you're not really connecting to whatever you're doing. Like if I went to a dance studio and just learned as much as I possibly could without ever really taking the time to go out and have fun dancing, it's like what's the point? Like and it made me think of Jimi Hendrix, which is the pretty much the best guitar player who's ever existed. I may have mentioned this before, but he didn't start actually playing a guitar until he was like 13 or something like that, and he played a broomstick. Like he was just listening to music, playing like just pretending to play guitar for a while. And like so he in my mind, I was like, he just built up all these really great positive associations without having to worry about any technique or practice or anything like that. And he literally just was like building up and envisioning and visualizing, like this dream, and like where I was just, basically cultivating that. And then when time came for him to learn, he was very excited. He was very passionate, and that was the motivation that drove him. And I think that's true in school as well. But I think it's hard with group classes.
I have so many thoughts on school now as a teacher living school every single day. And I think I would want to gather them a little bit more and maybe figure out what I want to say on air versus what I don't, to be totally honest. Um, but I think there's a lot to be said for like productive or meaningful struggle where you let kids, um, not in a mean way, but you let them kind of struggle. Like see if you can think about this. And I don't know, I don't like the model of like presenting information to the kids and making them figure it out first. I think that kids, especially at this age, need the demonstration and they need to know kind of a basic outline of a procedure. But then I think kind of like how I've been teaching at least is I've been starting them off really easy. Like now just do the example that I just did on the board, but by yourself, like the same exact numbers. What's 25% of 90? You do it on your own paper though, without my notes on the board. Like just copy it from your notes and then kind of the next problem. It's the same thing. And then progressively getting harder. And then you start bringing in things like, multiplying fractions or whatever. And then that calls on that skill set. And I think that that's cool to see because sometimes what I'm noticing at least is it seems to me that kids can sometimes like really have something, but then when you ask them to put multiple things together, they get a little bit wigged out.
Task overload.
Yeah. I think that they get a little bit like, wait, what? Dividing fractions? I don't. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing? You can't do it this way. What has to happen when we divide fractions? And kind of like that prompting them, like very typical Socratic method. But what has to happen when we divide fractions? And they're like, and then it comes back to them, they're like, oh yeah, what you taught us, keep, change, flip. Which I love, like just KCF, you just say it and they've got it. And I think it's so much about associations, right? Like just little things that'll trigger their memory. But I can't remember where I was going with all of this.
Like learning from failures.
I think, yeah. And getting kids comfortable with like, for me at least, it's kind of, it ties into what you were saying in that so much of school isn't necessarily formal education, and especially teaching something like math, a lot of it is just teaching them to be problem solvers. And like, yeah, you get a problem, you don't know what to do with it. So where do you start? And I think ultimately for me, like that's such a more meaningful task and tool than actually the act of multiplying or adding decimals or whatever. Like, yeah, that's important, but can you get to a problem and not have that iron curtain comes down, freak out, panic, I can't do it, I don't know, throw the pencil, throw the hat in, I'm done, and think, wait, let me see what information do I have and what information can I call on to do this? And kind of also setting them up in like maybe the way you try first doesn't work. And that doesn't mean that you still don't know what to do. Like you might just have to find other ways. And so, yeah, I try to do a lot of cool problem solving strategies like that with them. But it's cool. It's really cool to watch them in real time try to figure things out. And you can see the calculations in their brain, But yeah, there's a lot that I've learned skill wise, and being really clear in expectations is a big one, which naturally lends itself to being a clear communicator. Like, here's what you do when you come into my classroom and you know the drill. And also putting it back on them, like, you decide, you choose, giving them that level of power and authority. Like, I'm telling you, these are your options. You get to choose which one it's going to be. And I think that's a really cool way to get through to them, because all of a sudden it's not like they do something and you're like, this is detention. You've told them, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And now they know, here was boundary. I crossed said boundary. Now here is consequence. And I think that's why a lot of my kids are telling me I'm a super fair teacher, which is actually, I think, the best compliment I got, because nothing is worse than an unfair teacher. I don't know if you ever had one, but I did. Or like even on my midterm, there were 2 questions that most of the kids missed. Threw them out. Everybody gets 10 points. There you go. Because they were 5 points each. And I was like, there you go. Wasn't obviously something was wrong with the question. There you go. 10 points. And I think that's so important, like, especially from a young age, instilling this level of they can respect authority and still feel empowered themselves. And I think that's the motto I try to show up with every day.
I think one thing that also can be negative about the school system is that it doesn't teach I have time. It teaches, oh boy, I better get this done because I got 15 more problems and time's running out. So, I mean, there's something to say about urgency, but yeah, that's one thing that
it totally does. And it's really interesting you say that, because I've been thinking, like, as we go back into the spring, I've been kind of using the workbook that they have, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I want to do that. I think I would almost rather focus on quality than quantity of problems. Like, I would rather them do 4 problems really well than rush through a page and kind of be like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I've got to get this done so I get the check mark.
It's easy to make an expedient course to answer to solve standardized testing, you know, and so that's the problem. Is it's efficient. You're funneling people through. I actually had a math teacher that that's what she did. She's like I'm teaching how to solve these math problems, but the problem was she didn't teach the why, and that's the most important thing in math because it all builds off each other. And if you don't understand the what's going on underneath, then you're going to be lost in a year. You know, if you're learning these quick tricks and gimmicks, then good luck understanding whatever whatever's in store for you, depending on how long you stay in math. And for me, it went till senior year of college.
I know.
It's like
I know.
also just about and I think we can apply it to our own lives as well. And so for me particularly, I have a frustrating relationship with GPS because it makes me lazy. Because it's just like having a teacher that's always there, that's always willing to bail you out as soon as you get lost. And next thing you know, I'm typing in a GPS in my hometown when I already know where to go, but I'm just don't want to make a mistake. So it's like the same thing. And another thing about GPS, I'm letting people have it. Is
I'm just laughing at the way you go. It reminds me of my relationship with Jeep.
and whenever you're paying attention to GPS, you're not paying attention to anything around you. So you're not seeing, oh, okay, there's a road sign, there's a road sign, there's a road sign. Okay, okay, this is it. This is beside this street and this street. And you're looking around, okay, there's a grocery store there. You're interacting with the world a little bit more than usual. With GPS, I'm mindless. I'm on autopilot. I'm just, I have no idea where I am. I'm not paying attention. And I feel like that's kind of takes away the potential experience in a car that you can enjoy driving. And it's because you're not figuring things out. And you can use the time in the car to a new place as a interesting not a mind game, but expanding your map of the world. And I think that's a fun thing to do while driving. And GPS just makes you lazy, and it makes you not pay attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
But it's extremely valuable.
It's valuable. It definitely has its place. I definitely haven't done it for like places that I know where I'm going. But yeah, you ever had those moments when you're driving? I don't know if this happens to you, and it doesn't happen to me that often, but you're kind of like, wait, where am I going again? And you don't remember if you take a left or a right. I had that moment like taking Sirius to the vet the other day. I was like, wait, is it a left or a right? But I think that actually for some reason it made me think of this like talk I had with my kids because they were like calculators, blah blah blah, and I was like, calculators are only as smart as the person that's using them. And that's what my high school math teacher told me, and it's so true because I'm like, if you put in your PEMDAS and you don't put parentheses where parentheses actually need to go, it's not going to be the right answer. Or just little things like that, and that you have an awesome calculator inside your head, and it's called your brain.
Yeah, it's the balance of being lazy versus efficient, I think.
Yeah, which I mean, don't get me wrong, for a super long division problem, like I'm all for plugging it in the calculator and saying, let's go. Like you don't need to do, 500 decimal places worth. But at the same time, it's important to understand basic things like that. And I think that, yeah, I don't entirely know, but I think that the curriculum could do for being, oh man, I don't know if I want to say this on air, but I will. I don't care. I think it could really benefit from just being cut down. Like, I don't know how much these kids actually need to know about this stuff.
Have you whenever I was in fourth and fifth grade, I had I was in like AIG or whatever, but we had a Singapore math book. So we did Singapore math curriculum, and they're all word problems. They're all word problems, and so I think that's pretty valuable because it's basically saying, the goal is literally to be like the goal is being a problem solver and in thinking. It's an exercise. It's like a meta skill. You're thinking about how to organize things to get an answer and take information and unpackage it and figure out how to. That's really that's probably one of the biggest takeaways for most people in math, even if they're not working in a field where they're going to use it, is the meta skill of just being able to
Yeah.
think clearly and use logic. There's a lot. The math is a language, and it's a very logical language, and it's very orderly, and so it's like, geometry, using proofs, um, being very
Lots of
clean,
deductive reasoning.
being very clear in your steps. So it helps you, like, okay, well, I can't be sloppy because I'm going to get a wrong computation, and so I have to do this very orderly and neat, and that's something that you can learn. And I think that bleeds into other areas of life as well.
That's a big thing that I'm struggling with is a lot of kids don't really know how to show their work and how to organize their work.
It took me until till college to be like, oh, this is good, like this is crisp, this is clean, like the equal sign is perfectly down the middle, like, and it's just like it looks good, and I know everything. I'll even write an answer back there so I can check it again. And so, like, whenever I make errors, I don't have to do the whole problem over again. I can go sideways and run it different things in segments, and I'll have different parts of problems running at the same time.
Ah,
And like keeping it clean takes practice, and so
it does. It takes a lot of repetition, and that's why.
and seeing things like and seeing your professor how they structure their page, the stuff on their page.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
I
cool.
know. That's why I have them doing it the way that we are. But I think it's a lot of repetition and it's a lot of practice and it's a lot of convincing them.
It's a language.
Showing your work is important, going step by step. Yes, maybe for some of these easier problems right now, you can do it in your head, but that probably means you're someone that's going to go on to do something with math, and it's going to get to a point that you can't do it all in your head.
Hmm. Yeah.
If you're solving a circuit problem, you can't really do that in your head. You've got a lot going on there. So, um, it is exciting though when you start seeing some of their work and they're writing it like I write it. I'm like, oh, okay. I know that was because of what I did. But yeah, just teaching them, and that's what I've been doing with them is I give them at least 2 pages of word problems per unit. That's like 10 word problems. And it's so important, like just helping them be like, okay, what information do I need from this problem? And one of them, it's just some of them I just have done really easy because I'm just trying to get them like, just don't panic when you see a word problem. Like, it's okay, you can figure this out. But so one of them, it was like, Chick-fil-A sells 8-piece and 12-piece nuggets, and 96 students at the school order 12-piece nuggets. How many nuggets is that total? And a lot of kids were like, well, what do I do with the 8-piece? I was like, does that have anything to do with what the question is asking you? No, nothing. There you go. There's your answer. And it was so cool watching them be like, oh, okay.
Discarding.
They're like, you're trying to trick us. And I was like, no, I'm letting you see how smart you are is what I'm really doing. Like, oh, okay, Misty, whatever. But it's cool because word problems are so important, and just so many kids throw down the iron curtain and just kind of put the foot in like, nope, not gonna do it, don't know what to do, can't start, can't figure it out. It's just like you're already so defeated and deflated if you're already starting from that mindset.
Hmm. Yeah, and honestly, it makes me miss, like, I think the thing about life in general is that it's so complicated. If you have to come in with some clear goals, and like values to organize it, and some of them are already built into us, but uh, like, and that makes me think of, like, playing games. So like, I think that's why it's so easy to form a group of people around a game because the rules are much more clearly defined than in life. So like in basketball, obvious, get the ball in the hoop, okay, just 4 more points than the other. But soccer, hit the ball, get the ball in the goal. Um, and then like there's like the money game, in life where like make the most money possible, do whatever you need to do to make the most money. Clear goal. Does it brush aside morals at times? Yes, but that's like it's a clear game to play. And then like math problems, there's a clear objective, like solve.
Ah,
Like the certainty that you can get in certain and when you take life and shorten it into these smaller games, um, that's good because it makes it life a little bit simple. But then no, when you get out of school, not many people are playing the same game, and that's when it gets complicated. Is like you don't know what game people are playing, and then yeah, um, I think that's why it's important.
such a good way of looking at it, like that shared objective and that share and like something that is super clear. And that's something that it's so awesome about math. It's like 1 + 1 = question mark, and it's like there's an answer to that. And there's a definitive answer to that you're gonna get. Or with a word problem, right? Or whatever. Whereas it's like I bring you a word problem of a bunch of words and no numbers, and I'm like, what do I do? Which decision? And it's like, yeah, that's an open-ended question and there's no answer. Whereas I can tell you if 96 people ordered 12-piece nuggets, I can tell you how many nuggets that'll be, assuming there are no errors.
This I think that's one thing that's is so attractive about math and physics and engineering and all that stuff is there's certainty, which I think being outside of it has helped. I think sometimes that can create a false sense of certainty in other areas of life.
Yeah.
But it feels good. Like, yes, this is the correct answer. I've ran the numbers. It's the correct financial answer. I'm going to do it because it's correct. It's like numbers. It's very safe with numbers.
Numbers are reassuring, that's for sure.
Yeah, very reassuring. And they're metrics that, you can at least you can track something.
Well, and they're easy to compare, right? Whereas if you're comparing this decision of do I go to school or do I, build my way up in industry or whatever, like that's such an abstract comparison. Whereas I can tell you, 8.77777 is greater than 8.66666. And that's really reassuring. And to see it on paper, even though numbers on paper are really just these representations of super abstract concepts, which number theory is really cool. Quick plug. But anyway, since we were gonna make this a Christmas edition, I guess we should bring it back. This is very tangential.
As it's supposed to be.
Normal conversations of brains that are all over the place. But what are your favorite Christmas songs, or favorite if you can just pick one?
O Come, Emmanuel.
Copycat.
My favorite. Oh, that is really one of my favorites. I do love. I like the Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby Christmas stuff. Probably the best. I like. I like In Excelsis Deo or the Glory.
Angels We Have Heard on High.
Yeah, I like that one because it's easy to harmonize with.
I saw this funny meme, and it was like, how many syllables does Gloria have? And it's like Catholics 18. Or whatever, however many syllables that one is. That's a good song.
What about you? Don't steal mine. That'd be ridiculous if you did that.
Oh come, Emmanuel. So good. I just listened to different YouTube versions of it today. I think I listened. What?
Listen to the Pentatonics version?
Yeah, Pentatonics is so good. I love their versions of Mary Did You Know and God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. That one is so good, their version of that one. Also have a great version of Hallelujah. Just plug that real quick. But I found one by Peter Hollins today, who he's super cool and I really enjoy his music, but I hadn't heard his version. I heard that today. It was really good. I love Grown Up Christmas List. Did you ever listen to that one? Or did you hear that one?
I never ended up listening to it.
Ah, such a good song. I think you would really appreciate it.
All right, I'll listen to it tonight.
I love that Happy Christmas, the John Lennon song War is Over.
Mm-mm,
I'm sure you know that one if you heard it on the radio.
maybe. I'll check it out.
Um Love that one. Oh Holy Night.
Yeah, there's some good ones. There's some good ones. All I Want for Christmas Is You. I can't say that's my favorite, but it's always fun to try to sing it.
Mariah Carey.
Is you.
Wow.
Yeah,
That was pretty impressive.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'm like shook right now.
And so that one's really fun to. Oh, by the way, I've come up with a good formula to learn how to sing songs just by myself. I'm sure if I went to someone that's professional, they'd be able to help me so much faster. Um, but just take it super slow, and I usually try to hum the exact note slowly until I can hit it until I move to the next one, and then sing it super slow and controlled by humming it because then I don't have to worry about the tone of my voice with words. So I'm just hitting the actual notes correctly very slowly. And then I'll switch over, maybe speed it up a little bit, memorize the words, and then try to incorporate it all. But I start really slow. And so that's anything with runs like that, I'll try to hit the exact note. So I'm not sloppy and just sliding up and down. That's my method.
So you've been practicing that is what you're saying.
Every single day since the day after Thanksgiving for an hour straight. No, no.
Well, it's paying off.
I do. That is one thing I like to do with like if I'm in the car or something. Just you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's all I do in the car. That's the best time to get it out because except for people I'm really, really comfy around, I won't do it.
Now, but here's another thing: that if you are trying to get better with your vocals, turn the thing off and then record yourself, and then play that through the radio. And then that definitely for me is a wake up call. I'm not Mariah Carey. Like it becomes very apparent whenever you listen to yourself running it back without any just purely a cappella. Um,
Yeah, I don't think I would ever record myself. Well, maybe I would. I haven't recorded myself singing, but I do that a lot with piano. That's a great way to record and play back and be like, or especially to record yourself and then use a metronome and you're like, wow, I really need to work on my timing. Especially if you're doing a piece with a bunch of triplets or something, sometimes I'm like, oh, yikes, let's clean that up, shall we?
yeah.
I'm like, girl, what were you doing in that measure? um, but that's such a good way because like I'm really bad at actually playing with a metronome. It just bothers me and there's too much ticking and I can't focus. So I'll usually like record myself after I feel like I've got it. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I'm right on. And then other times I'm like, yep, we need to do some timing work.
Yeah. One of the best things that helps my timing is dancing.
I believe that.
Because your timing should be pretty much in your body. You know what I mean? Like it should be in you, so you don't have to think about it. And the dancing is definitely like the first few months I danced, I was like, dang, my rhythm's actually pretty solid without me having to think about it. I mean, depending on what type of time signature I'm doing, but for the most part, I was
I
like,
think, yeah, I totally agree. I'm just working on some pieces that have a bunch of triplets and doublets
that'll do it.
and especially with two hands, like so the right hand has triplets, but the left hand is just doing normal eighth notes and just getting that lined up. Right. Because
Piano is definitely, yeah, timing
like,
with two hands.
yeah, the triplet has like, kind of one and then the eighth note comes between the and getting those lined up, but like a little bit closer to the than the and. It's tricky.
Hmm. Christmas music.
Christmas music. I've been working on a couple pieces myself. I've been working on O Come, O Come Emmanuel. Actually, fun fact.
We should. Well, I'll talk about it off air, but just some dreamlining. Um, but that was a good podcast.
That was super the long and winding road, but
But those are the roads we're taking. So on that note, we will see you guys later.